Good evening, America. Welcome to the Friday edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting, as always, from our nation's capital and the wiredtofishcoffee.com studios. Yep, Wired to Fish Coffee is the official coffee of Just the News. And right now, you can go get some amazing Christmas gifts for the loved ones, the coffee lovers, the fishermen in your life at wiredtofishcoffee.com, and you'll get a fantastic 20% discount. All you got to do is use the promo code JustNews or aim your camera at that QR code in the screen there, and you'll be on your way. What a great company. It contributes money to Christian organizations and to conservation, two things that matter a lot to me. All right, I know normally I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Amanda Head in Los Angeles, but she's on assignment tonight, so we're going to fly you solo, but we got a great show for you, a lot of great guests. But first, I want to get to some headlines. Something that just happened a few minutes ago. Donald Trump weighed in on two big national issues. First, he started with those drones that have been flying over New Jersey, for which the Biden administration has no explanation. Donald Trump said, hey, government, get an explanation out or blow them out of the sky. Shoot them down, he said. That got a lot of attention. And shortly after that, the president put out a second Truth Social post saying it's time to end daylight savings and go back to a normal clock. He said they would get that done next year. Two big pronouncements by a man who will be president in just 40 days. That is just some of the headlines we're tracking here at Just the News and Real America's Voice. Some other headlines, starting with immigration, and a report this morning in justthenews.com showing that the number of immigrants with temporary protected status, essentially an invented form of asylum or amnesty that President Biden created, has jumped 240% since 2021. It's an incredible number. More than 1 million people got an asylum that didn't even exist until Joe Biden's there. The Biden administration uses the temporary protected status designation on many foreign nationals to protect them from deportation and grant them internal legal status when they don't qualify for refugee status. It's really quite remarkable. The numbers jumped from 320,000 in the first year of Biden's term to more than 1 million this month. Isn't that remarkable? It's contributed to that 12, 13, 14 million person wave of illegal aliens that have flooded our country. We also have some more news for you regarding President Biden's clemency spree. A lot of you thought it began with Hunter Biden on December 1st, but actually, it started on November 22nd in secret after he commuted the sentence of 3 Chinese nationals. These 3 Chinese nationals were convicted of pretty serious stuff: espionage, fraud, and child pornography. Officials told Just the News that the commutations were all part of a prisoner swap with the CCP for 3 Americans wrongfully detained there. They didn't announce these commutations until last night when they gave us the larger list of 1,500 people that got it. Now, speaking of clemency and pardons, CNN asked the former chairman of the January 6th Select Committee and Democrat Congressman Benny Thompson if he would like a pardon from President Biden before he leaves office. Check out what he had to say to that question.
Do you want the president to offer some kind of pardon to you? As strange as it is to ask that question, I'm just wondering what you think.
Well, you know, the president, it's his prerogative. If he offers it to me or other members of the committee, I think I would accept it, but it's his choice.
If you haven't done anything wrong, why would you accept a pardon? Guess we'll have to figure out. Well, Democrat Senator Chris Coons also went on to CNN to say that President Biden should consider more preemptive pardons. Get a load of this.
I think the president's got to weigh a lot of different factors. How seriously he believes Kash Patel, the nominee to be FBI director, and the other nominees to lead the Trump administration's law enforcement agencies, how seriously they are determined to go after their enemies list, and whether or not some of those who are on that list and who are reasonably foreseeably going to be investigated want a pardon. If they talk through this issue and decide that there's no one who is seeking a pardon, that will lead them down one path. If there's others who are petitioning urgently for some relief, I think you should seriously consider it.
I think there is some serious consideration going on. All right, a little news from Europe quickly. The former Speaker of the House, Democrat Nancy Pelosi, has been hospitalized after an injury while she was on an overseas trip in Luxembourg. She was there to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge. She broke a hip. It's unclear how long she will be injured or in the hospital, but we're told that she's been working even in the hospital, so that's good news. We wish her a speedy recovery. All right, we have been talking for the last couple of months about all of the different things we've learned about the border crisis, all the things our eyes told us were true, and now the data shows up. Those 1 million people who got that temporary amnesty that didn't exist except for Joe Biden. The children, the hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied children who came here without their parents, who the government lost track of, but they don't know where they are. 320,000 at least. Well, the man who has helped bring a lot of that to the forefront spent some time with me earlier today, and I want you to watch. Congressman Glenn Grothman had a lot to say. All right, joining us now, the man whose investigation uncovered all of the extraordinary failures of the Biden administration when it came to protecting unaccompanied minor children, opening up that border, creating a national crisis for us all. He's the chairman of the House Oversight Subcommittee on National Security and Border, and a great member from Wisconsin. He is Congressman Glenn Grothman. Congressman, good to have you on the show, sir.
Be on the show, though it's unfortunate we have to one more time discuss this disappointing topic. The number of unaccompanied minors or children with people who were not their parents, and of course eventually the Biden administration got rid of the DNA checks, but all these people flowing across our border only 4 years after a small number of kids for a short period of time were separated from their parents who were breaking the law. We have hundreds of thousands of children crossing the border and now are somewhere in the United States, some being human trafficked. Who knows where so many of them are. Complete human rights catastrophe, as well as something that's going to result in what Joe Biden wants, a permanent change in the United States, unless we find these children and send them back across the border to where they came from.
Yeah. And we wouldn't have known about them if it wasn't for your dog at work, sir. And I know you don't want to give up on these children. You want to find them, first off, because they may be in danger. It's so shocking when we got this memo. I was thinking of you the second we got a hold of this memo, because when you read it, you realize that the Biden administration knew from the beginning that they weren't going to be able to return these children to their parents because the parents weren't willing to come over here unless they could get a full freight for their whole family. They go ahead anyways. After being warned, they just let the flow begin. What does that say about the thinking, the compassion, the concern that the Biden administration had for these children?
There's no concern for the children any more than there's any concern for our country. Joe Biden's sole goal is to permanently change the United States. And if that means taking in 8 or 9-year-old children and putting them with foster parents or losing track of them altogether, they don't care. Because every new person coming here changes America a little bit more. And it's a tragedy for these little kids. It's horrific. We have foster parents who are taking care of some of them. So many of them we've lost track of altogether. But that is Joe Biden's goal. And it's going to take years for us to track down these kids and find out where they are. There's a little child you saw right there, and that is a common thing you saw at the border. Children coming across with maybe something pinned to their shirt or something saying, take me to some such address somewhere in the United States, which is terrific. We would never stand for that. If an American parent was pinning an address to their children and dropping them off at the airport, and, we've got to find a way to take them somewhere. But that's what we're putting up with these immigrant children. Just horrific. Hard to believe what went on in this country.
Yeah, abandoned and left alone and then forgotten by our government, who allegedly took responsibility for a period of time. It's just remarkable, and we know this because of your great work. Another statistic that came out, we got it from the Congressional Research Service, was on our site this morning, a 240% growth in those who've gotten special protected status in America, basically a invented form of amnesty that Joe Biden created. Now over 1 million people came in through that back door. Probably something Donald Trump will shut down, but how do we address those 1 million plus people that came in since under that protected status?
The same thing. We've got to track them down and hopefully send them back. One more example, the Biden administration just trying to get as many people here as quickly as possible. I hope we have the legal ability to send them back. It's a good time to talk about something else. You're hearing some congressmen, and this bothers me, talking about saying we're just going to remove the people who broke the law, remove the criminal class. Let's not forget we're having over up to 10 million people came here the last 4 years. Okay, we just can't be removing the 1 in 100 or whatever who have broken a crime and been prosecuted. We've got to get rid of a lot more than that. And it's important that the Trump administration does not cave in to the more weak-kneed, open borders Republicans who say, well, why don't you kick out the murderers and the rapists, but otherwise we can let the 10 million people stay here. No. We have to remove a clear majority of the people who snuck in here during the 4 years of Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's going to be a big fight. There are people who are trying to get President Trump's ear and saying, just deport the people who've committed a crime. That is an insult to all the people who've come here illegally, or are on the list to come here legally, and it's also will permanently change America. We got to remember, the reason we don't want these people here is not just because a few of them are committing crimes. It will permanently change America, make America more crowded, which is something we don't need, and you're going to be inviting in people who, even if they are hardworking, may not share our American values. Do you believe in freedom of speech? Do you believe in limited government? Do you believe in self-reliance? Who knows?
Yeah, these are really important questions. Now, the president seems very dug down. He's getting to get all the illegal aliens out. Tom Homan really working hard to get that process going. Some interesting ideas he put on the table on the show here just earlier in the week. He says he's going to get Justice Department permission to prosecute mayors, jailers, and others who won't cooperate in turning over people. Do you think that's a good approach?
Oh, absolutely. We have another problem in this country. You're right. There are people on many, many states on all levels of government who really don't like America. They want to see America permanently changed as well. And they're going to stand in the way of President Trump trying to remove these people who came here based on a lie that they needed asylum. I have a problem in my own state. Governor Tony Evers saying that if people show up at a factory or a work site at a farm, he doesn't want these people deported. Well, what is going to happen if these people get their way is all of these illegal immigrants are going to run to some sanctuary state or sanctuary city and hide out there. So President Trump has a really difficult task ahead, but I think he has the mandate. We know the American public, I think thinks we have more than enough legal immigration, much less 10 million new people who shouldn't be here in the first place under any circumstances.
Yeah, that's a great point. Sir, I know you've done a lot of thinking about what's possible, not just what is on the list, but what's really possible to achieve for Republicans next year. What's your wish list? What do you think the order should be?
Well, obviously the border is number one, and President Trump may need some more money there. We have to have a permanent reduction in spending because in order to get inflation under control, we have to stop printing all this money. I would like something done in the welfare situation. We have a situation in this country in which we're bribing people $20,000, $25,000 a year not to get married, not to have the father in the home. That has long been a goal of the left, getting rid of the nuclear family. Lyndon Johnson made such progress towards that in the 60s, but everybody I talk to does feel that this welfare system is broke. They feel that we have to get rid of the penalties for getting married or having a man in the house. And I would certainly like to see that being one of the things out of the chute as early as possible. And by the way, politicians get nervous over time. I think you're going to see an effort made to get most of this stuff done in the next 3 months. And I think President Trump largely has a very good staff around him who does want to implement the policies that President Trump enunciated during his election, which definitely means a smaller government.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And you can see it with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. That work is well underway. Getting the Trump tax cuts renewed so they don't expire and people's paychecks stay where they are, that an important goal as well?
So I think that's going to be out of the chute. The important thing is we can't just say, because that's what the business community wants, that's where we stop. And I think I'm not alone in worrying that the people who don't want to do any more than that, they realize we have to do that to prevent economic downturn. But that there are a lot of people who don't want to make any other changes here. And I think there are going to be people under this dome whose goal it is to say, let's keep the business tax cuts, and that's it. And then we'll see what happens with everything else over the next 2 years, knowing full well we'll never get there. We don't have a lot of wiggle room. That's why we have to get everybody on board with everything. You got to remember, we can only afford to lose one person in the House. We can only afford to lose, about 4 people in the U.S. Senate. So we've got to get everything that we need to make America great again in that first big bill that is going to be passed in presumably February or March.
slim margins, but big opportunity if the Republicans execute. Mr. Chairman, you've done such extraordinary work over the last couple of years, shepherding that subcommittee and getting us all educated on the border. We could believe our eyes because of your work and not because of what we were told by the Biden administration. What a great honor to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining us.
Well, glad to be on here, and hopefully we'll have a lot of good things that'll be on the docket in the near future.
I have a funny feeling you're going to be on the show a lot next year. We really appreciate every time you come on, sir. Thanks for joining us. Merry Christmas if we don't talk to you before then. Pretty important thing he said there. Kitchen sink approach. One big bill, one or two big bills at the beginning of Congress lard all of the Donald Trump priorities that Congress needs to get passed in one giant bill so they can keep their votes together. That's a big idea. You're going to hear more about that over the next few months. Now, after the break, what will President Trump accomplish in his first 100 days? We've got the perfect person to answer that question. He's been by President Trump's side since he came down the escalator in 2015, more than a decade with him as a senior advisor. Jason Miller will join us right after these commercial messages. Welcome back, America. As the inauguration draws nearer, the anticipation and excitement for what President-elect Trump might be able to accomplish in his first 100 days is growing. I thought we'd turn to someone that knows him almost as well as anyone. He's been with him from the very beginning, all the way back to the 2016 campaign. Today, he's a senior advisor and our good friend, Jason Miller. Jason, welcome. Good to have you here.
John, good to be with you.
Yeah. Listen, the country is behind this president. They are, it's not just the vote. There's a sentiment. You can feel it. A lot of people want to know, what does that first 100 days look like? What do you think he can get accomplished in that first 100 days?
Yeah, great question. So you already have Stephen Miller, who's leading the policy efforts within the White House, along with Vince Haley, Tom Homan, other folks, getting ready to tackle what we can do on day one. So let's talk about that. The border policies that President Trump had in place during his 4 years, we saw record low levels of illegal immigration. Those are going to get put back in within the first 24, 48 hours. Executive orders are either prepared or being prepared. They'll put those in front of the president. He will sign them, and then we're off to the races. Now, keep in mind, a lot of that is turning people away at the border and everything that goes into that. It'll take a little bit more of a run-up to actually go and say start the deportations of the 1.2, 1.3 million illegals already approved for deportation. They're just sitting in our prisons and in our jails being ready to sent home, which you got to kind of wonder, why have they been sitting there? How much do we spend per prisoner every single year? Why aren't they already sent out?
Service.
We'll also start with the energy exploration literally on day one. That's going to be one that's going to be signed, get that moving. That, of course, was one of the first things from the Biden-Harris administration that started the cause for inflation. We decreased energy production. Going to get that up, as the president would always famously say, drill, baby, drill. The big thing, and what a lot of folks in Washington are talking about right now, are ultimately the tax cuts. We have to get the tax cuts reauthorized, those Trump tax cuts from the end of 2017. But not only that, we have some additional promises that we need to make good on. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime pay. For people who make their products here in the U.S., take that corporate rate from 21 down to 15. So a lot of additional things put together. Still some talk between the White House and Capitol Hill. Does that look like one reconciliation bill? Is it two? They're working through all of those, but some of these things you can do by executive action, which is what the president will do. Some of the things you got to work with Congress on, so those might not be as immediate, but the urgency is definitely there.
Oh, no doubt. And just before us, Glenn Grothman, congressman from Wisconsin, came out and said, but Congress is ready to get a big part of this agenda done the first 60 days. A couple bills, and maybe we'll get all the items checked off. To hear that from a Congress that often has to struggle to get a few things through, you get a sense that people are serious. You talked about tax cuts. Yesterday, a big moment. The president meets with the Longshoremen's Union. A lot of these workers looking for more money in their pocket. Lower costs, getting inflation down. The president, I think, had a pretty good answer, too, because they're worried about automation. And the president, I don't believe it. We're going to keep jobs going. More money, more jobs. Likely?
Yeah, and I think it's important to talk about the win coalition that President Trump put together, because this is something that we haven't seen in American politics in some 40 years, where you have both business interests as well as labor interests looking to President Trump and saying, you can be the one who bridges the divide that actually brings us together. In a traditional or typical Republican presidential administration, we wouldn't be talking about any of this. This would be very simply Republicans on this side, Democrats on the other. And I think this is part of the reason why President Trump was able to put together such a great coalition, winning the popular vote and getting the most number of electoral votes for Republicans since 1988. So this is a pretty massive undertaking he did with the 312 electorals. But where do we find that balance? How do we stand up and defend American workers? And then also, how do we make sure that we're the most productive and most profitable country in the world? So President will be able to put those together. I think it's good that he said, wait a minute, I'm not so sure about this automation, and why are we going to go wipe out an industry when we're not even sure if all this stuff's going to work?
Yeah, no, I think there was a lot of rave reviews in the union workers. I was talking this morning. People really felt that event yesterday was important. One of the things he talked about, he wants to right the system that it had so much injustice in it for the last decade. He talks about J6 pardons, getting some of those done. Can you give us a sense of his rationale? I know he also stands up for cops. He's a big man of blue. Those who were violent probably don't get pardons. Those who were less violent maybe get a chance at it. Where's the delineation line, you think?
Yeah, so I definitely don't want to put words in Attorney General Pam Bondi's mouth or in FBI Director Kash Patel's mouth, especially as they're going through their confirmation process. But we can look at what President Trump said over the course of the campaign, which is we have to look at each of these cases individually. I think especially with this news, with this IG report that came out yesterday, where there are a lot of these confidential informants who were part of J6.
Who doesn't?
That, right, but then weren't maybe supposed to be there, but they were there. In my opinion, a lot more questions were raised than answers were given. So I think we need to look at a case-by-case basis, and the president has certainly said that as well. The president's also been very clear that we support the men and women in uniform, that we're not going to put up with or tolerate people who've, say, assaulted law enforcement officers or things of that nature. But we've heard these horror stories of people who've been essentially thrown away and they haven't been able to get really processed. There's no process, and they're just, the J6 hostages. I mean, that's exactly what they are. Let's go through on a case-by-case basis. Let's make sure that we have the politicization completely removed, and we're looking at each case on the merits of it and make sure that justice is blind and everyone gets their fair shot.
Yeah, so important, and I think that'll restore a lot of confidence in the justice system to right some of those wrongs. You had some nominees that, as you always happen in Washington, few get picked on by the media. Then all of a sudden, amazing things happen. Kash Patel goes up, Chuck Grassley says, impressive guy, like this guy. Senator Joni Ernst turns around on Pete Hegseth and says, after talking policy with him, he and I see eye to eye. Yesterday, the former counterterrorism director for the CIA coming out for Tulsi Gabbard. These are really big moments before even nomination hearings begin. What's going on behind the scenes? What's been the magic in getting people to get comfortable with these nominees?
We've known through this whole process that as soon as we get the nominees in front of the senators, that they're going to impress them. Yeah. Pete Hegseth, when he gets into the room and he talks about his vision for reforming the DOD, building back our national defense, he's a winner. Kash Patel, when he gets in front of these senators, and keep in mind with Kash, and he's joined you a lot of times on the show, he's been chief of staff for the Department of Defense, the deputy director of national intelligence, someone who's been a prosecutor, someone who's been a public defender. Kash really brings the full package, and when he gets in front of these senators, they're like, wow, this guy is very, very impressive. Tulsi Gabbard, very impressive. But also, too, I know a lot of times in Washington, we focus on the folks who might be taking some arrows from the mainstream media because they're trying to find a way to get at President Trump.
Of course.
Let's talk about some of the people who haven't been getting attacked but are going to be absolute rock stars. Scott Bessent, who's coming into Treasury. Howard Lutnick coming into Commerce. Marco Rubio coming into the State Department. I think of Elise Stefanik, who's coming into the UN ambassador's role. Who, by the way,
going to be shook up when she gets in. It's going to be fun to watch for that. Yeah.
Elise Stefanik already has Democrat senators, including John Fetterman, saying she's going to be a fantastic pick. So our strategy has been once we get these nominees in front of the senators, they're going to dazzle them. And what we have to do is make sure, as a good friend of ours always says, separate the signal from the noise. Let's focus on what actually the issues are and don't get caught up in the media bluster because, of course, they're just going to try to pick one or two people to attack. Fight back, or they're being unfairly maligned, and make sure that we get our chance to get our positions out there. I think we've really rounded a corner with a couple of folks who've been attacked. I think this next week will be another important week of individual senator meetings before the confirmation hearings start, probably in that second week of January or so.
That concept of focusing on policy, I look back when the Trump 2.0 version took fire. Really is in December of 22 when he starts doing those 5-minute videos and he starts focusing people on these extraordinary, kind of Reagan-like many speeches on how he's going to fix the country, and that substance just drives an entire campaign. And now you watch his people go up to the Hill, and they're doing the same thing. They don't get involved in the personal. They're just staying on the solutions. And the more the solutions come forward, it's been really amazing. Has that been a concerted strategy? Is that driven from the president himself?
Well, I think so. I mean, that's one of the things with President Trump is that he's never been about, let's see what the party line is for Republicans.
No,
let's see what we're supposed to reflexively be against if it's something Democrats put forward.
Yep.
He looks at it from a problem-solving dynamic. How are we going to cut through? Let's talk, for example, coming into 2017 in his first term when he said, I'm going to bring about peace in the Middle East. I'm going to admit I didn't quite think that we would get there.
That's a big promise.
Everybody in Washington laughed, and then he leaves at the end of 4 years, and it's done. Now we've seen with the traditional folks in power, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, how they've completely screwed it up. If anyone's going to get peace back to the Middle East, is going to solve that war between Russia and Ukraine, all the other conflicts around the world, plus do the things here at home with securing the border and rebuilding our economy, it's going to be President Trump because, again, he puts aside all the political nonsense, says, how do we solve the problem?
When Syria falls, there's this moment where he doesn't address Syria. He's like, it's not our war, but this is a moment for Russia to reflect and let's solve this other thing. And he sees a bigger chessboard. It's really interesting. And that chessboard seems to be falling into place. You are already seeing the Trump presidency effect before he takes office. World leaders are beginning to change their behavior. Mexico's got security on the street trying to keep the caravans coming. Seems like the world's already prepared for Donald Trump's arrival.
Yeah, and I think that's for a couple of reasons because, number one, they know that if they don't play ball with the U.S. and there are going to be tariffs and other issues, they're going to be put in place that they're, quite frankly, not going to like. The other thing, too, it's in their best interest to want to have peace and stability, not just in their neighborhood, but all around the world. When you have the death and destruction and chaos, things like the October 7th terrorist attacks or even the continuing war with Russia and Ukraine, that's bad for global markets. That's bad for investment. That's bad for stability. And so everybody should look and say, wait a minute, how do we go and take the temperature down, stop the killing, so we can get back to what we had under Trump, which is 4 really good years.
Yeah, peaceful years and profitable years or prosperous years. I wanted to finish on one thing because you mentioned Scott Bessent. You have a team of economic experts that are, I think, uniquely prepared for the next generation of currency, digital currency, cryptocurrency. The president made a big pitch for the crypto community. They fell in love with him. This seems like this could be a really seismic shift in monetary policy with what Donald Trump could do. Could you give us some insight, just what goes on behind the scenes and what the potential future could look like for crypto?
I got to be a little careful on this one because we're talking about financial markets
Right?
and
Yeah, that's
the way
right.
this can move
We
different
don't get the
things.
SEC on you.
Right. But the one thing I can say is that Gary Gensler is going to be out on day one. How excellent is that news? I think I remember back to the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, and we were talking with the president before his speech, and I said, I think this line that you have in here about Gary Gensler and firing him on day one could be the biggest applause
the cheer line,
And
right?
I don't think he totally believed me. And he got out there and he even kind of paused. He's like, wow, it's like, you guys really don't like Gary Gensler. Fact of the matter is that crypto is here to stay. Bitcoin is here to stay. And we're going to find a way to bring that into the system and make sure that's something that that we can work with. But again, even in addition to Bessent, you have Lutnick and you have others within the administration who are crypto friendly. And so I'm excited about this, and I think it's all I got to say is, boy, I wish I bought some Bitcoin about 10 years ago.
10 years ago, because it's up over 100,000. It's amazing. And you're also now seeing the BRICS movement starting to quiver a little bit. That's a big opportunity for America to keep that dollar as the global standard. Jason, you've been there for the president from the moment he came down that escalator. It's been amazing to watch these last 10 years. I think the next 4 are going to be the most fun, though. Great to have you on the show today.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. What a great conversation. When we come back, a little bit of discussion about the border. We're going to bring in Laura Reese. She knows everything about the border. We'll have her right after these messages. Hey, America, you've heard me talking about a despicable crime that the FBI calls house stealing. It's title fraud, and it's a growing crime, becoming a very serious problem from homeowners. In fact, a district attorney in California recently said that title fraud cases in his small county have gone from virtually none to 73 in just 18 months. Now, if you own a home or any property, your title and the hard-earned equity you've built are at serious risk. Now, how do they do it? With just one document, a forged signature, and a phony notary stamp, a bad guy can take legal ownership of your home and take out loans against it. Just like that, poof, your biggest asset could be gone, and it can happen without you even knowing. But there's a way to help stop them. I trust our friends at Home Title Lock to protect my home. They've got a special offer for you all to make sure you're not already a victim of this terrible crime. Sign up today using the promo code JUSTNEWS at HometitleLock.com, and you'll get a free title history report and a 30-day free trial of their exclusive triple lock protection, giving you 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and the best part, if God forbid fraud does ever happen, Home Title Lock's U.S.-based team works fast to restore your home at no additional cost to you. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code JUSTNEWS to protect your home, your equity, and get a peace of mind. Go do it today. All right, folks, I want to stay on the topic we started this show on, the border. We had a great conversation with Congressman Glenn Grothman. Our next guest is an extraordinary expert, former acting deputy chief of staff of the Department of Homeland Security, currently the director of the Border Security and Immigration Center at the Heritage Foundation. She does amazing research, Laura Rees. Laura, great to have you back on the show.
Well, thanks for having me on.
You had a fantastic article this week. I really thought it was the sort of the roadmap for what we can do very quickly come January 3rd, January 20th. Give us your principles and policies for a new American immigration system, which is probably going to happen next year.
Yes, well, thanks. Well, obviously, we've talked a lot about securing the border right away and interior enforcement, mass deportations. Tom Homan has also talked about finding the 300,000 missing unaccompanied children. But also, we have to look at what's left after the Biden-Harris administration, because they have fundamentally transformed our immigration system to the point where it's not recognizable because there's no rule of law. And we're left with 3.7 million cases backlogged in the immigration court system, another 9.2 million cases pending at DHS. And we really need to stop and work on getting those backlogs down to manageable levels before we start intaking any more applications, to get back to a lawful and a manageable and an orderly system year after year.
Yeah, a lot of work. You're right. Through executive fiat and just forcing practice, they really did change the rules of the road, even though the laws are still on the book, but no one's complying with them. We had a story this morning, a 240% growth in those people who got temporary amnesty, which really doesn't even exist in the law. It's going to take some time. Do you think Congress has the will to match the president's executive orders with some new legislation that puts some of that toothpaste back into the tube?
Well, I think what we're proposing here in this paper is something that both sides can agree to. Immigration, even before Biden, it was too complicated, often described as the second most complicated set of laws after the tax code. It was too slow. People, because it was so complicated, everyone applying thought they had to hire immigration attorneys, and so it also was very expensive. And it doesn't need to be that way. We just need a much simpler law that doesn't have so many exceptions and waivers and exemptions to every rule. It just creates busy work and, frankly, attorney work. So really, we just need to chuck the whole law at this point. It's not worth reforming. Start over, make it much more simple, which I think both sides of the aisle would agree with.
Yeah, like his principle, keep it simple. And I think that would help people a lot after 4 years of complex and painful moments in our history from the border. There was a story we had earlier this week I was very interested in. We've known that there's these unaccompanied minor children that we lost track of, 320,000 of them, if you believe the GEO and the CRS and some of the reports that came out, the IG, Inspector General. But at the end of the day, this was a crisis that was foreseeable. And we had a memo that we were obtained that showed that in the beginning of his term, Secretary Mayorkas was told, listen, family reunification is not going to be possible. We're not going to be able to do it. We don't have the money or the resources. And rather than stop the flow of the children, they just let it come. They came here at the behest of cartels. They came here as sex traffickers, and now we don't have track of them. The idea that they saw the crisis and just turned a blind eye, probably not surprising to you, but there's probably a legacy to it, right?
Yeah, this is something that the left has encouraged, and they passed legislation going all the way back to 2008 that entices unaccompanied children border crossings because it dangles immigration benefits for them for coming unaccompanied. And so obviously the numbers were going to go up, and that's what happened. Mayorkas himself at the beginning of his tenure said publicly multiple times, if you come as an unaccompanied child, we will not turn you back. And it really rang the bell for the cartels to smuggle more children across the border. And so many of them have ended up in trafficking or forced labor. It's just appalling. And the left has been silent on it. And I guarantee you, day one, when Trump is in office, they will start pointing at him and saying, you are separating children
Yep.
when they have been silent the last 4 years.
I bet you are 100% right. And by the way, it's been the most inhumane way that any person could come to this country. People used to come and see the Statue of Liberty at Ellis Island. Now they see a rape tree when they enter our border illegally in the South. It's just improbable that we let it get this way. I want to talk a little bit about a talking point that I see starting to emerge on the left, which is, hey, all right, we let all these people in, but I got to tell you, if you're really a fiscal hawk, it's cheaper to keep these people here rather than deport them. That can't possibly be true.
No, we have spent tens of billions of dollars just the past 4 years to bring all these people here. The Biden administration handed money over fist to NGOs through the State Department, the Justice Department, DHS, Health and Human Services. They have built tent cities in Central America, all over the U.S., to process people to the U.S. and throughout the U.S. That's what the left is going to call internment camps. So we need to call them out on that. But also, that's the front end. Then on the back end, cities, localities, American taxpayers have had to pay for overcrowded schools, overcrowded emergency rooms, lack of housing, lack of jobs, and social services that have also been billions of dollars. That it just multiplies each year that this population stays here. So no, it is far cheaper to deport in very large numbers than to continue paying for so many millions that we just can't assimilate and we can't absorb.
Yeah, and we never planned for it. Just remarkable. One last quick question. With immigration reform, some census reform too, because part of the goal here was to get more people counted, even if they were legal, to hijack apportionment and representation. Do you think this administration is up to the job of also getting some census reform done?
Yeah, they need to. They need to return a U.S. citizenship question back to the census. They tried the first term, but it was thrown out on a procedural matter by the Supreme Court. So they need to do that again and be clear that for apportionment purposes, only those who vote should be counted for congressional districting and also presidential electoral votes.
Yeah, good advice and something to keep an eye on. I don't think a lot of people are talking about it, but it could be a big opportunity. Laura, you do such fantastic work at Heritage. Great article this week. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week and Merry Christmas if we don't see you.
Thanks, John. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, great to see you. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. More ahead, including a little thought of coffee. I'm cold tonight. It's cool outside. We'll have a great conversation with the great founder of Wired to Fish Coffee right after these messages. Hey, America, Donald Trump has done it again. And with his presidential victory and a red wave sweeping the House and Senate, conservatives are back in the driver's seat. But as the fight to restore America begins, now is not the time to get complacent. That's a good piece of advice. You have the chance to be part of this movement, not just as a voter, but as a member of a powerful organization that takes its marching orders directly from you. AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. I'm a card-carrying member. AMAC is the conservatives' alternative to the AARP. We stand for faith, family, and freedom, and we're fighting for the values that make America great. Join AMAC today for only $1 for your first year. What a great deal. That's right, you heard me, $1, but don't wait. The special offer ends on December 31st. Donald Trump is building his team, and you can be part of it. Join AMAC today and help us continue the fight for a brighter, freer future. Visit amac.us/justnews now to claim your $1 membership and make your voice heard. That's AMAC, amac.us/justnews. Together, we can keep the momentum going. All right, folks. During the commercial break a little while ago, I picked a cup of coffee up because it was getting cold in here. DC's been cold the last few weeks, a little bit of winter in, and there's only one coffee I drink, Wired to Fish Coffee. I love the taste. That's why I started. But when I learned about the company and what it stands for, I fell in love with the company itself. Joining us right now, one of its co-founders, to tell us every time you drink a cup of coffee how you're going to make a difference in the world. Joining us right now, my good friend, Leah Thomas. Leah, welcome back.
John, thanks for having me.
All right. I fell in love with Wired to Fish Coffee because it's the best taste, the best Arabica blend I've ever had. My whole family's addicted on it. But when I learned what you do, that you take your 25% of your proceeds and you put them back into Christian faith organizations and conservation, I was sold for life. Tell us some of the things you're accomplishing with that money.
Man, John, we have had such a wonderful year to watch our projects that we're vested in, see some terrific success is wonderful. One of my favorite projects that we're working with is the Filter Project. It's a parachurch in Kenya They drop water filters into the slums of Nairobi and preach the gospel. And they have delivered clean water to over 1,000 families in Kenya this year, which is super exciting. They've exceeded their goal, and we're so proud to be a part of that. Next year, we're shooting for 2,000 families. So it just feels so good to be able to help some people that are really struggling, both emotionally and physically in another place. And another one of our projects on the conservation side that we're really excited about is we've been working with North Carolina on a greenhouse project to repopulate man-made reservoirs with plant life. And I spoke with them earlier this week. Actually, I spoke with them twice this week because they're getting ready to start breaking ground on their greenhouse here early next year and are hopefully going to be in it by next summer. But they also told me about another project that we can look at going forward. Apparently, they put in some berms to have some floodplains for muskie because muskie are obsolete in North Carolina. Yeah. And in doing so, when they had these terrible torrential rains that flooded out so many parts of the mountains up there, they learned that these berms actually really did what they were supposed to do, and they provided a floodplain and actually saved several subdivisions from being flooded. So we're excited about looking at that project potentially next for them. We just feel so excited that everything that we're working for is turning a corner. So it's been a really wonderful way to end the year.
That's an amazing thing you're doing, and it makes drinking that coffee all the more rewarding beyond the great taste already. All right, we're all in that last minute. We got a week left to get our Christmas shopping done. I'm way behind, I have to admit. You've got some great ideas for the coffee lover, the angler, the fisherman, the outdoors person. Give us some ideas, ornaments, cups, what do you got?
Well, we got a lot of cool stuff. Last minute, though, we have a lot of neat ornaments. This little cold brew guy is one of my favorite ones. But we have quite a few for the angler. If you have a fisherman in your life that would like to have a great cup of coffee and an ornament. And then one of our more affordable ones that's actually really pretty to me is these little angel wings. Or we have a nativity for some of the believers out there. And we have quite a few more. But surprisingly enough, we do make a great cup of coffee. And this guy has been a really big seller for us because people love Elf. And we still have quite a few of those in stock. So if you guys are struggling, we can help you out.
Oh, man, that's great. It's funny, my whole family's into elves. I'm not the elf guy in the family, I got to admit it, but they are just the most popular things everywhere I go. Someone's got an elf insignia. It's pretty remarkable. What I hope is next year, everybody has a Wire to Fish coffee insignia somewhere on their mug or somewhere on the bag of coffee near their roaster, because what you're doing, Leah, is so special. It's been such a joy to be a partner on this project and to watch you do the amazing things you do, growing your company, growing faith, growing conservation. Congratulations. Merry Christmas, and thanks for helping us on our holiday shopping, too.
Merry Christmas, and thank you and your audience for the support. It is so appreciated.
Yeah, we got a great group here at Real America's Voice. All right, folks, if you want to go to the store, wiretofishcoffee.com, use the promo code JustNews, 20% off for the rest of the month. That's a great deal. They even have a mug. You get a subscription for Just News. Go check it out. Amazing gifts to give for everyone in your family. All right, we'll be back in just a second to wrap things up with a great conversation from the border one more time with our two great correspondents from Real America's Voice. We're going to take you down and let you know what we learned all week after these messages.
Located in a point of inspection in the part of Coahuila. This multiple inspection points, we have been seeing them more active since City of Mexico, that we have been driving all the way up through the states of Querétaro, Guanajuato, San Luis Potosí, Saltillo, Monterrey, Matamoros, Reynosa, Nuevo Laredo, and now you see these multiple military inspection points with the Marines, with the Institute National of Immigration of Mexico, all of the branches working together to decrease the level of trafficking, of drugs, trafficking of fentanyl, the extortion continuously that is happening by the cartel, and not only that, the mass migration, the illicit and illegal migration that is occurring at this particular point and juncture, the Trump effect, after the dialogue that Trump had with the president, Claudia Sheinbaum, it is also effective in Mexico. The military, it is now active and it is not working, and they feel empowered that now they can have the power to fight the organized crime, to control the flow of drugs that is going to the United States of America, and to decrease the illicit and illegal drugs that are continuously going into the northern border.
You know who those guys are. Every day they're on this great network keeping us informed about the border. Our two amazing correspondents, Ben Bergholm and Oscar Ramirez, capturing a dynamic you're not seeing in the mainstream media. They're joining us one more time for the week. Hello, gentlemen. Where are you today?
Well, we're out in a field somewhere. We're near, what's the name of the town, Oscar?
Torreon.
Torreon. And we're a long drive from Piedras Negras to Juarez. There's no easy way to get there. It's about a 16-hour drive. So Juarez will be our next stop for covering the CBP-1. And every single stop, John, surprise, surprise, has been full of illegals through the CBP-1 app. So that's not stopping, but the big news was what Oscar just revealed.
Yeah, Oscar, that was a great report. And those sort of checkpoints, that sort of military presence was non-existent for the last 4 years, if I understand correctly. But with Donald Trump coming, I think the president of Mexico got a pretty clear message. Pretty significant ramping up of the security status in Mexico, correct?
Yeah, it has intensified more. You know, you had your typical average checkpoints every other day of the week. Now it is starting the full week. And the most amazing thing is that all the branches from the government of Mexico, the Fiscal General, the Republic, the Marines, the Army, and the Institute of National Immigration, all of them working together all the way from the city of Mexico into the northern borders, you know, applying the security measures to decrease the level of trafficking of humans and also the fentanyl. That's one of the things that President Trump had a long talk with President Claudia Sheinbaum to decrease that flow into the United States.
Yeah. How are the cartels and the human traffickers and the coyotes and others, how are they reacting to this sudden change of presence? The chance of getting intercepted by a checkpoint was pretty small a few weeks ago. Now it's a lot higher. Are they changing tactics?
Well, we talked secretly, per se, in one checkpoint with one of the military agents, and he told me sometimes we have the ability to act and wipe them out. That was his word. But the cartel uses humans as shields and uses the population to guard themselves for them to attack the military, and sometimes they need to hide. And specifically, these are the same tactics as anybody knows exactly. So this is why it is really important to label these organizations immediately as terrorists.
Yeah, and it seems that that's something that Donald Trump and his borders czar, Tom Homan, are going to do pretty quickly early on. All right, guys, you've seen the CB1 app still in action. It's still the fastest, easiest way for illegal aliens to just concierge their way into the United States. What do you think happens in January? Does CPB shut that app down?
Oh, 100%. It's done. As soon as President Trump, now, not before January 20th, but as soon as President Trump takes office, CBP-1 is gone. The question becomes, what happens to all those people that have 2-year paroled release? And that becomes I think that goes to the courts, and that becomes a trial issue, you know, whether or not you can deport those people. But I think they start with the low-hanging fruit, all of the criminals, everyone who's committed additional crimes while they've been here, everybody in police custody. Go into some of these, you know, Chicago's and these places and start wiping the really bad guys out, the really bad hombres out, and then we deal with all the CBP-1s after.
Yeah. Jason Miller was telling us earlier today, there's 1 million people that have been cleared for deportation or just sitting in pens. We can get them out quickly. That's a big outflow that would help a lot really quickly. I'm hearing a lot more talk about maybe for people who haven't committed any crimes, giving them some opportunity to self-deport, a grace window to self-deport. Do you think that will be on the table and will it be popular with people here illegally in the country?
I hope it's on the table. I think it's you know, you extend that carrot and say, look, you're here illegally. You made a mistake. You decide to go back on your own. We'll give you an opportunity to reapply and go through the proper channels. And that way, but to answer your second part of that question, I don't think that many people would take them up on that. But at least that gives you the opportunity to say, hey, we tried. We tried to give you an opportunity. Now you're gone.
And we gave you that chance. Well, one thing, guys, you do every day for us, you give us an opportunity to see the border as it really is, not as it's been disguised by the media and the Biden administration. We are so grateful for your heroic work. Be safe. Thanks for a great week of reports live on the border. We've been really blessed on this show to have you. All right, folks, what a week it's been. A lot of news. We had a lot of news even on Friday. Good news is Amanda will be back on Monday. We'll get back to regular programming. Until then, we're going to hand off to Grant Stinchfeld and wish you a very great week, and I hope you get caught up in holiday shopping. That's what I got to do. God bless.